So today we'll be covering a pre-planned JDAM attack and how to execute that with the Harrier. But first we'll need to start the Harrier before we can do anything else. So I'm going to make sure my throttle's at idle, nozzles are full forward, and then I'm going to turn DECS on, enable fuel, oxygen, pumps to norm, flaps to on, and arm the seat. And then from here we will go battery on and APU start. You should hear the APU crank now. Once we get warning lights, we know the APU is running, and we can go ahead with engine start. Move the engine out of cutoff into idle. You see the engine spooling up now. At this point we'll turn on our MFDs, our HUD, and our UFC. I'm also going to turn up the panel lighting a little bit. That's lighting a little bit. Set expendables to auto. INS to nav, DMT to on. Alright, so at this point we're going to load our loadout. I'm going to go F8 for the ground crew, F1 for rearm refuel. Okay, so we're going to load gun pod, 2 times GBU-38. The inner pylons can only hold 2 GBU-38s. The outer pylons, or the middle pylons I should say, can load 3 GBU-38s. GBU-38s are our JDAMs, which are based off of Mark 82 bombs, which are 500-pound bombs. For the pods, we'll just take a sidearm and a sidewinder. For this center line, you can either load the lightning pod or the DECM pod. The DECM pod is a jamming pod. It's useful for seed. And the lightning pod is obviously a targeting pod. Today I'll load the targeting pod just so you can kind of see how to use it for bomb damage assessments, but you can also do this completely without a targeting pod. However, a targeting pod also gives you the capability of doing a target of opportunity drop, which I'll cover later on in another video. So we're going to go ahead and load these.
Request rearming. Copy.
Alright, so now in order to set up the pre-planned attack, we're going to go into the F10 menu. Now here we see our targets, but normally this won't be the case online, but you can see where the parking spaces are, and that's where we're going to set our markers for the bombs to drop. So to do this, we're going to zoom in as close as possible on the spot that we want, and then up here in the corner by the map, you will see a mark label button. So in order to do the pre-planned drop, you click the mark label once, and then you set a single waypoint not on a target.
Rearming complete.
It's just a filler waypoint. And then you will set your first actual target drop waypoint. We're going to do it directly on the 18 because this is how you would do it if you didn't have targeting information. So we're going to go T01 for target 01. Then we're going to go zoom into the next spot. T02. T03. T T04. T05. T06. Oops. T06. T07. T08. T09. And then we can do up to 10 pre-designated drop points, because the Harrier can only carry 10 JDAMs. So there's our 10 targets. So we're going to go back to our Harrier. We're all cranked up. Bombs are loaded. So what we do at this point is you will press and hold right alt, right shift, and then the number 8. And what this does is it feeds the waypoints from the map into the Harrier's computer system to be used for targeting. And we can verify this is done by going to the left MFD, well, either MFD really. You go to the MFD, you'll see CAS, click the CAS button, and then you can see here that you can cycle through and all the targets are entered. And if you want to see a bigger list, you can hit recall and it will show you all the target information. Okay, so at this point we're going to go to the EHSD, which is your moving map. And what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to get rid of the actual map so it's easier to see the cue points on here. You can leave the map up yourself if you want, but when we do it, but that'll be fine. And then I'm going to get our T-Pod to start warming up, just so it'll be ready by the time we take off. Okay, nav's done. All that's good. Expendables are good. Okay, we're going to release our parking brake. Okay, so for takeoff, what we're going to do is taxi out to the runway, line up, and get to set our flaps to full, which they're at right now, but we'll do that anyway just so you can see what it looks like. And then we'll throttle up to full power, and once we get to 100 knots, we'll rotate the nozzles to 60 degrees and pull these slightly back on the stick, and that should get us a fairly stable takeoff. Okay, so we're lined up. We're going to go over the map real quick. So here you can see on the map we are indicated that we're navigating to waypoint 1, and this caret indicates which direction that waypoint is. Also on our HUD we can see the distance that we are from waypoint 1, which is 53.5 nautical miles. Now with the preloaded targets we can cycle through each target, and that will also function as a waypoint too, so 53.5 miles from target 5, etc. This will come in handy a little bit later on, but for now we'll just set it to waypoint 1 and navigate from that. We'll change that almost immediately after takeoff though. So looks like we're all set. We're going to go ahead and throttle all the way up. knots, 60 knots, 70 knots, 80, 90, 100, going 60 degrees, nozzle slight nose up. Airborne, immediately go gears up. Give it a second for the gear to go up, and then go flaps up. Flaps are up. At this point, you might have to put more nose up to keep the plane level. Once flaps come up, slowly rotate your nozzle from 60 to 0 to attain normal flight. Okay, we're at 0 degrees nozzle. Once we hit about 300 knots, I typically throttle back. Just because at 300 knots, I know we're not going to fall out of the sky. Throttle back to about 84%. And we're going to start a slight climb and set our trim. So at the higher you are to drop the higher you are when you drop a bomb, the better chance of the bomb hitting. Our altitude goal is going to be 20,000 feet. So we see our altitude here. So we're going to get ready for the bomb drop now. We're going to go out of VSTOL mode and into air to ground mode. I'm going to set our waypoint to target 8. I'm going to go ahead and turn our pod on. I'm going to push the designate button. This isn't necessary for the launch itself. I'm just doing this so we have visual on the target point once the bomb's hit. And hit designate, and that will slave the targeting pod to that waypoint. I'm going to change it to FLIR just because I prefer FLIR. And we've already overshot the waypoint because I'm done. So let me just get it back on course here. Now you can tell if you're on waypoint, both because it will be illuminated on the HUD. Here it's showing that not only is the diamond the waypoint we were navigating to, but the circle with the point is where the targeting pod is looking. And you'll see the smaller vertical bar. That vertical bar is your steer point for that waypoint. So you just line the carrot up with the bar and you're on the way towards that waypoint. I'm going to go ahead and set a nose up trim so I don't have to worry about holding this while we do our computer boopy stuff. Okay, so we're roughly 40 nautical miles from the target. So at this point, what we're going to do is select the JDAMs, put the fusing into initial, and I like to use nose tail. So at this point, the JDAMs are armed. I'm going to go weapon on the upfront panel, and I'm going to hit the targets button. So for targets, this is going to say which targets you want the bombs to hit. And you can select multiple. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Hit targets again to cycle it. 5, 6, 7, 8. Targets again to cycle it. 9, 10. So as you can see on the HUD, we now have 1, 3, 6, the entire order that the bombs are going to drop onto those targets. And we see we have all 10 targets selected. And then here is our quantity of JDAMs. 10 J82s. We've got to get a bit higher. Now we're going to go master arm on, and we should be ready to drop shortly. I'm going to bump up the throttle and gain some more altitude. Okay, as you can see, we're approaching the drop point, and now we're at 17,000 feet, which is good, but not optimal. Just trying to get us a little bit more level here. Okay, so as you can see, as we approach the target on the moving map, there will be 2 rings. The outer ring is the furthest, is the minimum drop. So this is once you cross this line, that's the soonest point you can drop, and then the inner ring is the latest you can drop. So this donut is your drop margin. Once we cross the minimum threshold, we're going to get a percentage indicator on the HUD showing the probability of hit for all the bombs. We're at 20,000 feet. I'm going to go ahead and level off. And we'll know we've crossed that threshold when the HUD changes, which it should momentarily. Okay, so we're in the donut, and we'll see a ranging pipper similar to how you would use a gun sight or your rocket pods. This indicates the distance to target. This is right on top of the target. This is your minimum drop point. This is the percentage to hit. Once this gets up into the 90s, will begin dropping. If you hold the pickle button, it will drop in 1-second intervals. I'm going to be dropping faster than that. Pickle, 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 pickle. All bombs away. We're going to bank off slightly, throttle back to 80. Okay, so then now we can try to see on our HUD, or on our targeting pod, when the targets get hit. I'm going to be attempting to keep this in image and not crash at the same time. Oops. You saw nothing. Jesus Christ. Okay, got the picture back. We'll go flare just because it looks a little better. We don't get a time to impact or any other indicators that I know of. And there goes our bombs. All seem to be good effects on target. Alrighty, and that's it for the JDAM tutorial.